Hey there, I'm Scott. This is Tangents. Well, it is the 9th of August, 2022. I'm recording this one at 1956, not that it matters, but just thought I'd throw that in there. Today, I got an MRI. So I think I mentioned this in my previous. I've had this thing in my foot, which I don't remember exactly when it started, but probably at least a year ago. I woke up one morning and there's this bump in my foot, and it was excruciating to step on or walk on. And then I was just kind of messing with it, and it like popped in. I was like to the point where I was gonna panic. It just like popped in, and the pain was gone. Like it was. So I don't know, obviously, like what kind of magical thinking I was engaging in, but I was like, oh yes, it's resolved. And then like a month later, it came back, and yeah, every month or two, it would pop up, and I was able to like push it in a place that it would go from excruciating to I can't even feel it, and I'm not aware of it, and that went on for a while. But then we went on our retreat, and I came back to LA, and I woke up the morning I was there and had the bump again, but this time it wouldn't push back in. So, in a bit of panic, I asked my sister about it, was able to, and I appreciate this greatly, she was able to get me seen by a podiatrist that day, and or that morning, and went in, and I think I'm gonna need surgery basically, but he wanted to, or I guess required, a MRI for diagnosis. So that was a couple weeks ago. Finally had the appointment today. I got it as soon as I could, and went in and got those pictures taken. Looked at them myself, and obviously I'm not a radiologist, and my understanding of anatomy is pretty much limited to a year or so of anatomy physiology, and not, that was decades ago, so not great. I have no idea what it is. I can see the bump. I can kind of see that it seems to be pretty well isolated, and it seems to have decent margins around it that are not connected, so it doesn't look too scary, although there is like a little branch off of it that maybe looks like it's connected in a way, but I guess it probably, who knows. Hopefully we'll get the radiology report soon, and I'm sure, no matter what, just like anything, when you start down the path, the end of that path is kind of, it's not that it's a foregone conclusion, but it's that decision to make the turn where the thing happens. And then the rest you're just kind of riding along, and it may seem like a while, and may seem like a very long time, having an excruciating thing on your foot that's keeping you from walking comfortably, and or standing, and kind of hurting your foot, and then you're setting your foot down in a weird way, which means you're hurting other parts of your foot, and it just sucks. And it is summer in Arizona, so it's not like I want to walk as much as I would normally walk, but still I feel compelled to walk, and I love walking, and then I just can't because of this, so it's really been frustrating. Anyway, getting that taken care of, and I don't remember exactly what the context was, but I'm trying to think what it was. Probably when I was walking. I tend to walk and then either do a meeting, or sometimes listen to music, or sometimes put on like YouTube videos. And I do that, and I have, YouTube is not great with suggestions. I think I'm pretty confident. I've never used TikTok, but I'm pretty confident from what I've heard about TikTok that because TikTok is apparently insanely good at making those suggestions and just hitting the nail on the head, like giving you exactly what you want, I think YouTube is trying it, but somehow, despite having the resources of Google, they're not able to figure it out, or they haven't been able to. And so most of their suggestions are bad. And most of their suggestions also are like the same handful of songs and music videos that I've seen a bunch of times. I don't know how some of these, like some of them I understand how they popped up. And then other ones, it's like somehow, what is it? What a Feeling from Flashdance popped up at one point. And it just keeps popping up. And occasionally, like once every few weeks, I'll watch it. And it's like a self-reinforcing loop there. But I think it was today or yesterday, I was walking, and one of the suggestions that popped up was this Anna Akana video. And it's weird. The only reason I know who she is I don't even know when it was, but a while back, she was on a show with somebody who I think is pretty much an asshole, or, you know, okay, it's complicated because obviously I'm not trying to say that someone's inherent nature is to be an asshole. Obviously, you know, people are, we can improve, we can get worse, we can change. But we also have tendencies, you know? And this is a guy who I think, I learned about him because I think he went to some forest in Japan where people were committing suicide, and it was like a big thing. And he's basically like a YouTuber who does a bunch of, you know, stunt bullshit, and just kind of seemed like an ass. Granted, he's young and he's found something. I mean, it's hard to argue with somebody who's got some success. I don't like the way that he's found his success, but yeah, if somebody's doing something that they're getting traction with, I understand the tendency to do more. And he's probably making more money and more comfortable than I am, doing much less work just because he's, you know, found this niche. So that's great for him. But anyway, she was on his show and defending him, and when this thing came out, and somehow, I don't know if I saw one of her tweets or I saw something that linked, I think somebody linked to this video with her there, and they're talking about it. I guess she's done a bunch of other videos on cancel culture and this sort of thing. But found out about that, then interacted with her on Twitter, not in the best way, but, you know, it's like kind of like, I understand what you're saying, I appreciate where you're coming from, but, you know, it's kind of unfortunate that you're, you know, helping this guy who seems kind of like he's an asshole. And she was very defensive of that. I don't think in a bad way, don't get me wrong, but, you know, just, and also probably taking me to be very judgmental. But we interacted, like a little back and forth there. And I watched a few of her other videos and then forgot about it. I think this was like a year ago, maybe more. Could have been a lot more. You know, my perception of time is not, it's not very good. It's like on a geological scale, especially in retrospect. But for some reason, YouTube, after not showing me any of her videos for whatever indeterminate period of time this has been, showed me one of them. And I watched it. And I really appreciated it and really liked it. And I've started watching, yeah, I've probably watched a couple dozen of them in the last day or two. And one of the things that I really appreciate, I talk a lot about how I don't do this scripted, do very minimal editing. And also, I'm not really, I mean, this is weird to say because I'm putting it out here. And I do appreciate everyone who watches and likes and subscribes and all that stuff, but I'm not really doing this to build an audience. I guess and I don't think this is something like is in a defensive way of like, oh, I don't have very many people watching, so I'm just saying that, or I don't want to take the chance, so I'm just going to say I'm not trying. I really, like, sincerely, that's not my goal here. In fact, my goal, I don't even know what it is. It's kind of like a journaling thing. It's kind of like, I know, you know, Gil will listen to this. My mom will probably watch it. I have a handful of people who watch or listen, who I talk with otherwise. And to some extent, this is a conversation with them. To some extent, it's just me kind of pontificating. To some extent, it's just me doing something that makes me extremely uncomfortable. You know, I hate taking pictures of myself. I'm very self-conscious about my appearance, and my voice I'm like okay with. Although when I first started recording vocals and going in, and I went on the campus radio station, the Blaze 1260. No longer, they've changed their name, but I think they're still the Blaze, but they're no longer 1260. But 1260 AM. When I was on there, I was so uncomfortable, so self-conscious with how I was, how I sounded, and the fact that people could hear me. And then it was bad enough when I was on the air and like abstract people in the distance could hear me, but when there's somebody like in the engineering booth listening to you, and you can like make eye contact and you're just talking like this, it's fucking weird. I understand why on a lot of shows people start having a conversation, because if there's a person there and you're not, like, you're aware of them, they're aware of you, and you're having this conversation with an abstract audience but not really interacting with the person who's there in the space, who you can see and who can see you, it's just fucking weird. I don't know how people do it. I got better at that in time, but it's like, it's different when you're like recording the news. So before I got the show, had to record, I don't know if it was 1 minute or 5 minutes, but had to record like once a week some news. And somehow that was not so bad. Go in the booth, write your script, read your script. And for news that I had done research for and written a script for, I didn't actually mind it. And I feel like part of that is just, it's sort of the way that I see it, as like that's how you do it. You don't just speak extemporaneously. You kind of, that is the performance that you're doing. You're doing the research, you're making some comments in the sense of trying to be unbiased, but there's editorial choice, which is inherently a comment. What you talk about, it's a comment. And that never bothered me. Whenever I've done this, and I've never tried putting together, to be fair, I've never tried putting together a skit. So that's the thing. I have done stand-up a little bit. And even when I was doing that, like writing jokes, and I did even like a comedy class, and we worked on, this is the process that people go through. These are different approaches people take. And, I did it, and I was just never happy or satisfied with that. And I do know, like, that is the process that people go through. Like, people don't really, for the most part at least, they're not, like, live in the moment funny. And I got, my perception of how this goes is pretty fucked up, honestly, because like when I was a kid, watched George Carlin. And when I was a kid, and I know I've talked about this before, but bear with me. When I was a kid, I did not realize he was not having a live conversation. Like, I fell for that shit. And it was only later on when, this is one of these things where you don't have, I think a lot of epiphanies are like this. You don't have like a aha moment exactly, but you have like a series of things where you're kind of like, oh, that's interesting. And they kind of prime you for that aha moment. And I had a sequence of those. One of them that really stands out was watching Ellen DeGeneres do a stand-up special. And at the time I thought she was funny. I liked her. Not as much of a fan anymore now that I have a different perception of how she treats people on her show. But at the time I liked her, enjoyed the show. And then at the end, she recited Shoop. And in reciting Shoop, I had like a, what? I like opened my eyes. A little micro enlightenment. Just, not like a major revelation, but like, oh, This whole thing is rehearsed. And it's not just that it was rehearsed down to individual movements, and down to probably like a fraction of a second. Like she's hitting those beats, she's doing the dance, she's moving around, and you could see in a way that I couldn't see with the comedy. It became apparent to me the practice that went into it and all the work that went into it, and then I kind of generalized, like, oh shit, this whole show is like that. And then through additional like listening to stuff, largely, and I'm not a fan of Adam Carolla's anymore, but when I was in undergrad and grad school, and for a big chunk of my life, I loved Loveline. I like, and Drew also was a piece of shit. But I listened to these guys, and it was just like funny, and it was kind of like big brother and dad that I didn't have, just kind of like talking to you and not really like giving you life advice. And somehow I don't know how this happened, and I'm sure that I learned like a lot of stuff somewhere, but a lot of stuff about sexuality, and especially human anatomy and sexual anatomy and all of this, I know I learned it, but I kind of knew it on my own from a pretty young age, like probably at least like low teens. And most of the stuff that they talked about on Loveline, I knew it, at least in terms of like the clinical stuff, how to have safer sex, how to, how pregnancy works, how ovulation works, general details at least of male and female anatomy and all of this kind of stuff. I knew that stuff. Didn't have any experience with it until my mid-20s, but had some understanding of it. And so I'd listened to it, and it wasn't that it was informative, at least in most of the stuff that they were talking about with people. It wasn't really enlightening or telling me stuff I didn't know, but it was more just funny. And the callers would kind of give them launching points, and then Adam would go off. In later times, like I thought he was just live in the moment. Later on, he starts talking a lot about improv and how he was learning improv and worked on this stuff and did all of this work, which, another one of those kind of like micro aha moments. I sort of started putting that together and realized, oh, it's, now he's not doing the same thing where he's putting together material and reciting it verbatim, or at least he's probably doing a little bit of that, but let's just say, first approximation, we take him at his word, and he's not doing that much. He has done all of these improv classes and shows, and the way that I started really seeing that is sort of like if you're doing Tai Chi or Aikido or anything where you start practicing specific movements and you practice specific responses to things, and maybe you practice them in slow-mo. And as you do that, you practice, oh, if somebody does this, then you do this. If somebody does that, then you do this. And then you do enough practice of that, and you put it together, and you put it together fast, and now it looks like in the moment you're solving extremely complex kinematics problems. And like somebody's doing something here, and then you're like dodging them or transferring their momentum to help you throw them, or do whatever it's going to be. It looks like you're doing that in the moment, but in reality, it's just all that practice has prepared you for it. And because you're so prepared, you're able to compose, essentially like an improvisation, which when I was younger, I used to think improvisation meant just making shit up on the fly. But in reality, there's a lot of preparation, and a lot of people play improv games. They get better at stuff. It's a skill. It's a thing that you can develop. And so I had a little bit of a moment realizing that, and you start putting stuff together. And one of the things that Adam would talk about was comedy. I guess he tried a little bit of stand-up, didn't really take for him. And I guess to some extent, I always sort of, I feel almost embarrassed by saying this, but I almost kind of wanted to model myself off of not necessarily him, but what I perceived of him as him. So that ability to just in the moment without a lot of preparation come in and then do that stuff. Missing, of course, all the work that went into it. And, just essentially buying the same lie with George Carlin, where I thought, oh, yeah, he's literally just speaking extemporaneously. He's just having a conversation with the audience and not beat for beat, second for second, going through a performance that if you saw it 2 nights in a row and you overlapped them, like he would not deviate that significantly from night to night. Now, there might be some event that happens or somebody in the audience does something and I think things will get off the rails a little bit, but for the most part, it's like an animatronic thing almost. And it sort of opened my eyes, and it's kind of one of these things where it's like you get that peek behind the curtain and it's a little disappointing. It's still also, I definitely respect that stuff, but it's also, oh, you actually have to work and develop this skill, which is probably one of the reasons why I'm one-on-one, in the right mood at least, I can joke around, I can be pretty funny. Doing it on command, and especially doing it in this environment, I just have trouble with. And I could probably work on that. I just don't have any real desire or motivation to do it. I've thought occasionally about working on doing some funny editing, and flipping some stuff or jump cuts or just weird stuff to be a little bit silly. I'm not really inclined to. I don't know why. Part of it is certainly I don't have that much time. If I had unlimited amounts of time and I was just kind of sitting on my ass, I might, at a certain point, although I have so many other things I could do, I'm just thinking if I peeled away certain things, if I didn't have to work, I have whole layer after layer after layer of other stuff that I want to do that I just don't have time for. But if you peeled all of that stuff off or gave me enough time that I could do all of that stuff, at some point maybe I would do it just out of, well, I've done everything else, I'm going to try this. But I just don't have the desire or inclination. And I really, and this is am I deceiving myself in saying this or is it true? I don't think that it's that I don't want to put myself out there and, well, you can't fail if you don't try. That's obviously one possible explanation for that. I think it's just that I'm not inclined to. I don't really have a particular desire in that way. But yeah, I'd kind of like to be a little bit funnier when I'm doing this, but I don't really, I know the things that could work for that, and I'm not really inclined to do them. And watching, and this is getting back to Anna Akana stuff, watching this stuff, first off, she's obviously done a lot of therapy and a lot of work. And it comes through that she's very introspective and, not going to say deep necessarily, but these things, she's thoughtful. Let's say thoughtful. But then also, she has a crew of people. When I say crew, obviously, I'm not talking a big production, but, she has a handful of people who she's working with, doing the camera, doing the editing, doing all of this kind of stuff. She has other people she's performing with. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know what their process is, but I would bet that there's, I don't think it's improvised. I think there's at least some storyboarding and maybe, is it scripted? Is it not? I don't know. I think she's got the beats and she's got at least an outline of what she wants to say. And I don't know, it's just not, I respect and admire it, and I think it's actually great. If you're watching this and you're not familiar with her, watch some of her stuff. It's definitely, it's interesting, it's good, it's compelling, and I don't think you'll feel like you've wasted your time. And the fact that it's funny is, it's not bad. And I see that, I appreciate it, and I just feel like it's not for me. It's not what I want to do. Now, what is it that I do want to do? I don't know. I have lots of have lots of thoughts on this, but no real focus or decisions there. I mean, this is an interesting thing because I mentioned was with someone for more than 4 years. I think longer than I was with my ex-wife. We were together 2 years, got married, got divorced 2 years later. My ex-wife and I. I'm pretty sure my recent ex and I were together longer than that whole relationship. And this relationship ended basically just because my ex was already sort of, kind of a weird progression. Started out femme, but kind of lesbian, but interested in me. And then, interested in me, and then, kind of, interested in being in B, non-binary. Assigned female at birth, AFAB, but non-binary. And I was kind of, I'm always, like, my taste is sort of toward that anyway, so feminine, but not, like, hyper feminine, and I love, like, short hair and that kind of, hopefully not like the manic pixie dream girl archetype, but I like that. And that worked. And then was kind of going a little bit further. And then finally we talked a lot. And I think actually that relationship, I was really able to help kind of them realize, actually want to transition to male. And, the problem, of course, was, and not that our relationship, there are certainly, like, we were very good in some ways, and there are other things that were kind of not perfect meshes, but would have stayed together. But, between a handful of other things and this, going from non-binary to transitioning to male, that was kind of over the line for me. Not really what I'm into. And so, and for other reasons as well, they ended up realizing they're interested in being with dudes, but in sort of a more gay way. And so it's kind of, it was a mutual sort of thing, and not, obviously something like this, you're together that long, it's not easy. And it was particularly hard for a while, even though, like, it's one of these things, like, your brain, you get to pick apart the layers a little bit, but you kind of experience it all together. Rationally, this is for the best, but then I would be like, just crying or just very upset because, it's like, it's not even necessarily like, I wish we could just get back together. It's more, it's the loss of kind of, is it the idea or the expectation? I mean, like, for years now, every weekend I've just known, well, Friday night I'm gonna go over there, we're gonna hang out, and then either, for a while Sunday night, and then it blebbed into like Monday morning, I would come back and do my week here, go back, like clockwork. And we had kind of a schedule. We had a ebb and a flow going, and that was nice. I did feel certain things, like, I like having a bit of time to myself and having, work all the week. It didn't leave me a lot of time on the weekends to do, like, my own projects. Not that I'm doing a ton of that now, but I feel a little bit more space. But I also feel a little bit melancholy when I'm like, this is different than we used to do this on Sunday. And, kind of have that little twinge of, it's good overall, but there's a twinge of just, like, kind of miss that, But anyway, could probably go on about this for a while, but this is a thing that I've just been progressing, but recently, I don't know, order of probably like a month ago, so I don't even know when we broke up, but it's been a while already. A while back, between maybe like midway between then and now. Whenever it was, I've lost track of time, but I got on Hinge and I was trying a couple of things. One, I put together a profile and sort of looking around, and I realized a few things. One, I definitely realized, actually, I mean, try not to go through, like, I don't want to go down into the bowels of this, but I definitely realized that Phoenix doesn't seem to have, and especially like Gilbert, but the area that I'm in does not have a enormous number of people, at least on Hinge. Maybe there's a selection that they're not there, but people that I would be pretty compatible with. So that is of course a couple of factors. So I'm kind of interested in having kids, and I wasn't when I was younger. I wasn't when my ex and I got together. That was another one of the little fissures in there. It's not like I'm totally dead set on it now, but I don't know. At some point, I kind of got the idea in my head of doing it, and also, I don't know. I feel extremely arrogant to say this, but I sort of feel like it's a responsibility, just because I see a lot of, and forgive me for being a little bit judgmental, but I see a lot of kind of shitty people out there, and I see a lot of really, toxic behaviors and things and I feel like I could make a contribution. One of the contributions you can make is to contribute to putting more people with good ethics and good morals, and people who are going to do good in the future, hopefully, and spread out in that way. And I see also like Elon Musk has like fucking 9+ kids, and to me he's like a massive shithead, and you just think like, God. Now, fortunately, I think he's a semi-absentee father with these people, and he's just trying to spread his seed because he thinks he's fucking so great. But you see that, and you see also like all these religious people and all these people that are just like pushing shit into the future, and I feel like you need to fight back against that. And if I was going to live indefinitely and be like young and healthy, then I wouldn't feel this urge quite as much. But knowing our lives are quite finite, and you look at the road ahead, and I still think hopefully I have more road ahead than behind, but you can see the top of that hill is not that far off, and it's like, oh shit. There you start looking at like Olivia Newton-John just died, and I remember when I was a kid watching Grease. Now I think she was in her 20s then, but she's playing like young enough to play a high school student, and not quite a contemporary of mine, but you remember seeing somebody who's that young, and then you see the progression through their life, and then you see their death. And not just death. I mean, it's not just that she died of old age. It was, I think it was breast cancer. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it's still a decently long, relatively complete life. And I mean, it's similar to the whole Shakira thing. I remember her first albums. Those videos were on MTV and VH1 when they had music. And like Ojos Así and Bruta, Ciega, Sorda, Muda. Yep, like I'm just trying to think of other ones, but those came out, and I'm at a loss at the moment. It's driving me nuts. But these came out, and I remember that, and she was, I don't know if she was like 18 then, or maybe she was 20, and then you see her now, and she's in her 40s. And she's, and you kind of like, oh shit, we're pretty much or at least a similar course in terms of age and all of this. Maybe not in terms of life and career and all of that, but and then you kind of think, well, shit, and you start doing some more math, and it's just, it fucks with you. My sister's best friend, we had lunch yesterday, and so she has 2 kids, and her kids just started school. Um, it's like the first day, or maybe it was yesterday, but just started school for the year, and they're in middle school and high school. And I remember when one of them was born, and then when the other one was born, and it seems like yesterday, and it just blows my fucking mind. And I realize also, like, her youngest daughter, I think now, is older than she and my sister were when they met. And I think she and I are older than our moms were when she and my sister met. And again, or maybe like roughly the same age. And you start getting these little bits of perspective, and it fucks with you. It definitely fucks with you. Yeah, and your parents, or well, I guess my dad's not been around since I was 21, but my mom is getting, she's in pretty good shape, can walk, but she has some issues, and it starts freaking you out in many different ways. And so I don't know, I think about this, and I think, like, the window, obviously, like, I guess Charlie Chaplin, I think, had kids when he was like in his 80s or something ridiculous like that. So biologically, you have the potential to do it, but I don't really just want to be a sperm donor. I would kind of like to be a pretty big part in raising them. Yeah, and it's just, this is also one of these things, like the little, not like a big epiphany, but little realizations. Like one of those little realizations, I fly. I watch a lot of pilot videos on YouTube. And one of the ones that it suggested me was this dude flying with his daughters. And he's flying, I don't know what they were doing. They were going on a camping trip or something. And he's got one of the, like the oldest of the two, is learning how to fly. And he's got her like making radio calls, and like they're not landing the thing, but just like maintaining straight and level flight, following the magenta line, that kind of stuff. Just basic stuff, basic airpersonship. But yeah, I saw that, and I just had like a that would be awesome kind of moment. Like, yeah, it was one of those little oh, this is a performance that she has practiced, and then you start generalizing from there. This is a thing that could happen. And I see that, and I'm like, yeah, I like that. But anyway, I don't know. I was on Hinge. I looked at Phoenix, and then I got pretty much X'd out enough people that it's like, oh, you don't have any one that we're gonna suggest. So if you want, you can expand your preferences a little bit. And so I did that, and I felt a little weird about this. For political affiliation, they give you liberal, conservative, other. I think they have one more, unaffiliated or something. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, those are like the options. So I had liberal and other for the people that I was looking at. I would be more of a leftist, and in fact, I would look derisively at liberals. I mean, liberal is complicated anyway, because if you go to the UK or Australia, liberals are conservative. They're not, they're definitely a right of center party. It's not a question about that. And that's much of the world. Here, they actually are as well, but people think of them as kind of leftists to some extent. Of course, their leftist would be leftist relative to the Republicans, who are off the fucking deep end. Anarcho-capitalists, neo-fascists, like Christo-fascist nationalists. Yeah. But to me, liberal or lib would be a kind of derisive thing. I had to swallow some pride to pick that one. And I looked, and there were some people who were interesting. Didn't really match with too many people. Yeah. But then I was like, okay, I'm going to try expanding and I'll say it doesn't matter. You could say like this is a deal breaker, and I had that. Then I was like, okay, click doesn't matter, and a couple of things happened. Many more people. Interestingly, and I don't know what this is, and I'm not saying that the women who are my political affiliation are not that attractive, but in a certain way, the ones who were a little bit right of center, or I think non-political, that was it. They had non-political and other. I expanded to accept non-political and other and conservative. And they're a little more attractive in a certain way. I don't want to say like in an abstract sense, but definitely in more of a classical kind of made up way. Not that you know what I'm trying to say. And, or do you? I hope so. That was interesting. There were a lot more of them. Also interesting. I also expanded. I had previously, like it gives you an ability to select religions. And I selected pretty much anything but Christian or Catholic. I think those are two that they let you do. And I was like, okay, this is a deal breaker if it's one of those, but I'll take pretty much anyone else. Although realistically, you know, given my druthers, I would rather be with someone who was atheist at least, or just entirely non-religious would be the ideal. But yeah, I was like, okay, I'll expand this out. And similarly, which is weird because you would think if you're in that sort of Christian Catholic bubble, you would have these ideas of this world is temporary, and I mean there was a time in antiquity where people would just like not bathe and just sort of not really take care of themselves here because this is just a brief stint of an existence, and then you're preparing yourself and your soul for an eternity in heaven and all that bullshit. But they're also, you look at them and they're very well made up and taking very good photos. I don't think that, like, if you saw them, it's an interesting thing. If you saw them at a random time and they weren't prepared, I suspect there's no, it would remove any attractiveness skew, physical attractiveness skew. Obviously other attractiveness skews way the other way against them. But I think they're doing more stuff that's materialistic in a weird way. And in materialistic, I include just not like looking like ridiculously made up, but like taking care of their bodies in certain ways. And so you see that, and it's interesting. And I also started putting my location, because I've been thinking about moving for a while. And since the breakup, I'm less bound here than I was before. And so, I start going like, okay, I'll put it in LA, and I'll put it in San Francisco, and I put it in Melbourne, mainly because listening to the Australian accent is really, it's kind of nice. It's that same sort of thing in a weird way that, like obviously it's just normal for someone who's from there, but it's like when I was in France, I'd be walking down the street and I would hear people speaking French, and it's just like a little joy. Like, it's not like, this ridiculous big thing, but it just brings a little smile to your face every time. And you hear like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And, I hear the Australian, I did UK as well, and the English as well. It's, like you hear that accent. Would not really want to be in, as long as Brexit is a thing, I would not probably want to be there. Looked at Canada, mainly Vancouver. I don't know why exactly, but that's one that kind of like stuck with me. It's not completely random. It's like I've talked with a lot of people, I've done some research. Seems like a very nice city, other than maybe the Cascadia quake thing that could completely fuck over the whole Pacific Northwest. But other than that, and of the places I looked, so far at least, San Francisco, the Bay Area, seemed to have the most people, not just the most people who I found attractive and interesting and who also, many of them said they were atheists, many of them were not religious, or many of them were liberals or other, and the other became very clearly leftist, not just other. And you see that, and it was interesting. It makes me, I like that area. I'm not really that committed to going someplace. Like, the ideal for me would really be a city where I can walk. I want to be, yeah, and not just walk, but I mean, have public transit, have all of that kind of stuff. Ideally, also, like, the one thing that San Francisco has is it's not that far from my mom and sister. They're in LA, still, as far as here, basically. So it's not close, but it's not like Paris or Melbourne, but it's just kind of been an interesting experience. But I also, and actually in San Francisco, the only place that I've had people, I guess it's not totally true. There have been some that I wasn't interested, like here, people I was like definitely not interested, but they, I don't know, liked me, or whatever the expressing interest is in Hinge. But in San Francisco, there were actually a handful of people, maybe even a dozen people, who I found attractive, and they seemed interesting. They seemed, and they actually expressed interest with me on there. Now, later on, when I tried to match with them and start a conversation, it didn't go anywhere, but that was, it seemed like a positive signal, at least a weekly positive one. But I don't know, I like I said, I deleted it today and canceled my subscription. And the reason for that is I don't know, I feel, it's hard to say. I feel very worn down and drained. Like, I'm sure it kind of comes across, maybe not in my voice as much, but if you're watching the video, I probably look tired. I feel tired, I mean, the insomnia is getting to me. The not having taken a vacation in so long is getting to me. Just a lot of things. Like, just being tired of the political situation, being tired of, I mean, it is great that the FBI had a search warrant, I think a no-knock warrant even, and searched Mar-a-Lago today. Makes you feel good. Makes you feel like maybe, or was that yesterday? Either way, search it makes you feel like maybe something will actually happen and the motherfucker will potentially face some consequences. And I gotta say, I assume very strongly that probably won't ever get arrested or indicted, probably won't get tried, and if he gets tried, probably won't get convicted. And even if he gets convicted, I assume he probably would get pardoned by Biden. But I have that tiny glimmer of hope. There's something I want to say wrong with me, but it's something about just my temperament or my nature almost, that despite, however shitty things seem, I have kind of an endless font of hope. And, it's one of the things that, there are certain things about my brain's makeup and my emotional composition that I'm very grateful for, and that is definitely one of them. The insomnia, I could do without. But, my temperament, my emotions being so even-keeled, and it is nice. I mean, like when I was in grad school, and there was someone I was super attracted to and interested in, and my emotions were on more of a roller coaster. That was nice. But it's also kind of nice to just be like even keeled. And especially when you spend some time with someone who suffers, or maybe I shouldn't say suffers, but struggles with kind of volatile, unstable emotions. It makes you appreciate that, But I don't know. I've like the idea of spending the time talking with somebody on there and then finding, and then, okay, we're going to go out to dinner or something. And it's just like, I want to do that stuff, but I also, I don't know, I just am not that motivated to do it. And it's also like one of these things where you have to do so much work to get to what you're hopefully getting to that you just kind of think like I don't have it in me at the moment. I do understand like the clock is ticking again. Like yeah, could be Charlie Chaplin, but probably would be better to, if I'm going to do this, do it soon. And so because I would like to, I don't want to be at their high school graduation and be 90. That's kind of, I would rather avoid that. Let's just say. So or dead. Hopefully more the former than the latter. But like either way, I'd like to be around. I'd like to be relatively young and healthy, and that's just kind of what I would go for. But I'm also just, I mean, it also, to be fair, it's not just that it seems like so much work. It's kind of that, like the people that are there who I was matching with or had prospects of matching with are just not, you know, not the ones that I was that attracted to. They weren't the ones that I was that interested in for the most part. And I feel like a complete ass for this, but I mean, like a lot of them were older. And there's nothing wrong with being older, other than, like maybe the prospect of having kids is less likely, or, maybe you have more complications, or, birth defects and all kinds of other risk factors. That's a thing. But also, and, like on my superficial side, I find, it's one of these things also where you turn it on yourself and you're like, if I'm saying this, how does everybody else feel? But I don't find people my age, generally speaking, not all of them, but generally speaking, I don't find them that attractive. And it doesn't, I'm not saying like, not going after somebody who's like 20, that's like a little fucking ridiculous. But like low 30s, sort of what I would say probably aiming for. Late 20s is not probably, like, I guess it's not completely unreasonable, but it would be like a little excessive. But early 30s seems reasonable and seems like what I would aspire to there. But just not really connecting with them. And I think part of that is also like I don't have a lot of pictures because I hate, it's a problem because I hate getting pictures taken. Don't feel very good about my my appearance, and so most of the pictures I have aren't great, other than like my social media picture, which is just my friend and I were hiking, and she took a candid picture of me when I was drinking water, and I didn't even know it. And it's one of my favorite pictures of me, mainly probably because you can't see my face and it still looks, decent. But that's like the picture that I use for a lot of stuff. And here, you have to show this kind of stuff. And I did go through, like I have a decent number of photos that are interesting where I'm like with groups of people, or I'm officiating a wedding in France, and in Spanish and in French. That was an interesting experience. That looks kind of cool. And I have another one where I was at a wedding of a friend and I'm wearing a suit and I'm with a couple of other friends. It's a decent photo. It looks kind of like, oh, I'm social, we're having fun. I have some like this. I have a lot that are older that are maybe interesting, like skydiving and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I just don't have that many. And I don't know, I'm going through, and I think the photos are probably part of it. And I think also just, I don't know, my personality, whatever. I think there are just things that that come across in the profile that just are not like singing to the people that I'm most interested in. And I could kind of work to cultivate that, but I'm not really interested in that either. So it kind of, it just makes you think like maybe it's not worth it. I don't know. Which is not saying like I'm gonna stop trying entirely, but I feel like that avenue is not for me, at least not at the moment. Like maybe eventually I'll try something else there, but I've never successfully dated somebody I met online. I have gone Um, Not many, but enough first dates from people that I've met. And most of those ended up being like, yeah, just not, this is nice, you're a nice person, and just not into you in that way, and kind of parted ways. Or it's like, oh, I'm actually into you, and she's not into me. And so it's like, yeah, that's cool. Um, but yeah, I've never had a second date from that. I've never had a relationship. Somehow, despite being, like having pretty significant social anxiety and a lot of discomfort, especially like socially, I'm much better in a lot of areas. But when it comes to especially the flirtatious kind of like early stuff that gets you into a relationship, I'm not very good at it. I'm not comfortable with it. But somehow all the relationships I've had have been meeting in life. Like my now ex and I were campaigning for Medicare for All. And my ex-wife and I, she was at a kind of event to welcome people, well, not welcome, but show people around who were thinking about going to ASU. And my sister was in the lab, so went to dinner there, met her there. And somehow, met somebody at work or and it was just all that kind of stuff. Or met somebody through a friend. And the problem is, of course, I'm not doing that many social activities now, and so that kind of avenue is probably kind of closed off as well. I wouldn't say it's like totally closed off, but it's not like I do feel like eventually in time maybe connect with somebody, but I don't think it's gonna be soon. I don't feel terrible about it. Like it's not. I don't feel this urgent, burning need to get into a relationship. Um, yeah, but it would be nice. And I do have the biggest thing is just like thinking about the time situation. But anyway, with that, that's enough blathering, I think. And I am getting tired of standing and talking, and I'm also my foot is not happy, so I would like to take a break. So with that, hopefully it's not too many of these before I get my surgery, and hopefully that works out and my foot is okay again, because this sucks. I love walking, and having even this just impediment to it is painful and frustrating, and it's just like I'm not a very emotional person, but I've been really just blue about it. I've just been like, yeah, like, oh, I don't know how to express how to describe the feeling, but it's just, and especially like sometimes it's okay, and then sometimes it's throbbing, and I'm like, I do think like as I've gotten older, probably less testosterone, and so I'm a little bit more emotionally labile. I think those are connected. I could just be making that up, but yeah. Maybe I'm just less emotionally constipated, but I really do think it's the testosterone, right? Because it's not like when I was younger, I was trying to bottle up my emotions. It just sort of, got the puberty, and they're kind of like, not as much. And then at a certain point, 5 or 10 years ago, I was watching some movie. I can't remember what it was, and I was watching some scene in it that wasn't even that sad. And I wasn't crying, but I had like a tear in my eye. And I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. And again, like this wasn't like some dog died or something. It wasn't horrible or sad. It was just like a little bit, a little bit sad. Not like to the level where you would expect that. And that was like when it turned on a little bit again. And I've been not labile, but I've definitely had a little bit more of, like being moved by stuff in media or events and things to tears. So it's kind of a little bit weird. But recently, when my foot is throbbing and I really want to walk and I'm just frustrated and I'm feeling a little hopeless with it, and I'm just like, oh, and not like crying, but to the brink of tears a little bit, because it just sucks so much. And I know like this is a minor thing that hopefully can get fixed, and plenty of people have much worse problems. Like I'm lucky that I can stand here and walk a little, and there are people who can't do that, and I am appreciative of that, and I feel kind of like an ass for being so bothered by this thing that's really not that big of a deal, but it really has just gotten to me. And yeah, I really want it fixed as soon as possible, because it's just like I love traveling, and when I travel, the thing I want to do is more than anything just like walk around cities. And right now I would not be able to do that. I literally physically, like, I could walk a little bit. I walked tonight before I recorded this, but I really can't walk that much. And I can normally walk, I mean, I can normally walk easily, like when I'm on vacation, 30,000, 35,000, 40,000 steps sometimes in a day. And if I tried to do that now, I would be in agony. Probably a quarter of the way through that. I just miss it, and it makes me sad. And I really hope that gets resolved pretty soon. Anyway, with that, I am so fucking tired. This insomnia thing, I cannot tell you how frustrating it is, because I do have, the thing that's annoying about it is, like, I have the time to sleep. I have plenty, like, I will wake up at 5 o'clock and I'm like, I could be fucking sleeping for a couple of hours, a few hours even, and I can't. I physically can't do it. It's like, it's frustrating. It's one of the reasons why I've tried so many things to get sleep, because it's just, and it's just, I do have moments when I'm not that tired, but for the most part, all the time, I'm a little tired. Yeah, I'm just a little tired. And now I'm a lot tired. But anyway, well, when I was in the, this is actually going to be the last thing I say, but when I was in the waiting room for the MRI, on TV they had NBC, and they had a preview for Quantum Leap, with the A using the Greek lambda, which always annoys me. It's like the Gursk restaurant with the sigmas instead of the E's. But nonetheless, they had Quantum Leap, and I was like, what the fuck? I looked it up, and there's a new reboot coming this fall. And that I honestly, like, it's corny as fuck, I know. And maybe it dates me, or maybe I love that show. That show, like, there's something, I don't know if it's like Sam and Al, or it's a combination of a lot of things. It really, like, I'm a little mushy, and even as a kid I was a little mushy, and also, I guess I really like that idea of going back and setting right what once went wrong. And I really liked the two of them having that super close relationship, really close friendship, seeing the sort of vignettes of things. And, it has a lot of 80s, I guess it was actually in the 90s, but, it's that era where there's some stuff that's just, it makes you roll your eyes. And some of it is just so, it was the stereotype of the time, but, like, they had the pedophile van, like the child molester van, that was a thing that people talked about at the time. Not really, like, it turns out, like, statistically, I mean, that it's not that doesn't exist, but what really is the more common path is, like, somebody knows somebody. Just like kidnapping. Most kidnappings, it's a parent or somebody that the kid knows, so that they go with them. But there's a Quantum Leap episode where it's like, this kid is actually it is a kidnapping. Kid is kidnapped, and it's one of these just weird van things with the windows closed, and Belisario, you have to look at him in the context of the time and all of that, I guess. And but for what it was, and for when it was in my life, and I remember that the pilot episode of that. I was at my dad's house, and I remember the layout so well. Like, on the ground floor was a rectangle, and there was, like, the dining room back here, the kitchen, living room. I can never remember living room and family room. The less formal one was on the right side, fireplace, TV, and people were over there, and then I was in the other one, living versus family room, whatever it is. I was in there by myself. There was a TV, and I think I made a point of seeing it, but it kind of feels like it just came on and I wasn't expecting it. I would love to know, like, did I see the previews and then I made a point of seeing it, or was it just I happened to see it? But either way, I was in there, I was watching that pilot, and it was like that coup de foudre, like just like love at first sight kind of feeling. Like I saw this and this was my favorite show. And I'm not saying that it's the best show ever, and it definitely, again, I've seen it recently. Some things did not age well. Let's just say that. But I still love it. There's something about that show. And even the shitty season where they broke the rule of, like, for most of the show, he would leap into people who were not famous. Then one season they were really like trying to get the ratings going, and they started doing weird episodes. They did one that was like a 3-parter with Lee Harvey Oswald, and just like really trying to drum up some. Even that, in retrospect, I liked. And I'm kind of excited about this. It could be shitty and terrible, but it's sad. Dean Stockwell died, I think this past year, and I saw that, and actually Gil and I, like, Gil knows that I love Quantum Leap, but we were talking about it, and it was like, just, and he's a good actor, and it's just like, that character, though, was him for me. I've seen him in other things, and it's more like off-putting. See him in like Babylon 5, and it's like, or not Babylon 5, it's the Cylon one. Oh, this is embarrassing. Battlestar Galactica. Would see him in that, and it's like, it actually kind of feels wrong, because I just, like, you're Al, even though, it's a sad thing. But and actually, Scott Bakula, wow, did Enterprise after that. That show. Speaking of, I mean, I normally don't talk about shows that much. I'm excited about the Quantum Leap. I hope it doesn't suck. It's a shame that Dean Stockwell isn't around anymore. Scott Bakula is, though, so he could make an appearance or be on there a little bit at least. I guess it's going to be somebody else's the Leaper, and then they have somebody else in the Al role. We'll see how that goes. It could be terrible, or it could be great. I hope it's great. I really do. I had something else I wanted to say, and then just like, poof, it's gone. It's I just got so focused on that, and the other thing is gone, but it's fine. Whatever it was. Enterprise, that was what I was going to talk about. That was a show, it had so much potential, and I don't want to do like a show review, but I had the good feelings from Quantum Leap. Kind of fell off a little bit at a certain point. And it also has it wasn't as weird, like somehow Dean Stockwell in any role but Al always bumped me. You see Married to the Mob or something, and it's like, just doesn't seem right. Scott Bakula, and maybe it's just because I was used to him playing a bunch of different characters. I see him in different roles, it doesn't bother me as much. Saw him in Enterprise, and I do hope he reprises his character in one of the like strange, well, I guess it wouldn't be that, maybe Picard or something, but one of these shows. I guess it could be Strange New World, because Enterprise was before that in their chronology. But anyway, that show, a lot of potential. The time travel thing that they kind of shoehorned in there was a little weird, especially because of Quantum Leap. And then they did some storylines that were not great, and then they had some periods where it was pretty good. I guess a lot of I love Star Wars, but they've had a few issues where whether it was Terry Farrell or Jolene Blalock, I think it's Blalock. Apologies if I'm completely fucking botching the name, but Blaylock, maybe. I think that Voyager had some stuff, and I think TNG had some stuff. But I know, I think Denise Crosby, different people. Tasha Yar is the one. I think she had some problems, I think, with Rick Berman, and some weird stuff you find out about, and it's disappointing. Um, Jolene Blalock, I think. Her character was actually really good, and they kept trying. She was very attractive and very, very big-breasted, and they kept trying to do things like, oh, we're gonna do a decontamination where we're all in our swim trunks and like rubbing each other down. It was a little weird, and they also sometimes wouldn't let her character really like shine. And her character actually, like, she was a good actor, and her character was good at times, and they did like weird shit with her. And I guess she had a net negative feeling about that to the extent that I think afterwards she just kind of retired from the business and went off to have a family. It'd be nice to see her come back too, because like Strange New Worlds is awesome. I mean, like, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think it is my favorite Star Trek show. And again, it's funny. I don't know how I got onto shows from all this stuff, but anyway, just stepping back. Probably never going to do one of these that's actually scripted, despite the name. Yeah, I could try it one day, but it's probably not going to happen. Probably not going to be tightly edited ever. Could try it one day, but I don't think it would be the thing that I want to do. You know, I like the extemporaneousness of it, and I hope you find it interesting, or at least I've had more than one person say that they find it calming. Which when Gil first told me that, I took some offense. I gotta say, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, because I interpreted that more as boring, but I've had other people say it, and I think what it is just my demeanor is very calm and even keeled. Even when I get worked up, yeah, you can kind of feel the juxtaposition, but I'm still pretty mellow. And I think now I take it more in a complimentary sense, but it is kind of, I guess part of it is just like you have a certain self-image, or not even self-image, but you have a thing that you're aspiring to. And even though what you are and what you're doing is good independent of that, if it doesn't match what you were picturing, you feel a little bit bad about it. Like, I definitely, I do not like or hope that I resemble NPR. I find it kind of annoying and offensive. And I always worry about that with the calm kind of thing. I don't think I do, but yeah, it's my biggest concern now. But I also don't want to be like Radio Shock Jock kind of guy. Definitely don't want to be like Adam Carolla kind of guy. Definitely not Dr. Drew. I mean, fuck that guy. Jesus. Motherfucking anti-vaxxers. I can't even. We have all this technology. We understand so much about these things, and no, we're gonna have somebody get paralytic polio in 2022 because somebody didn't get fucking vaccinated. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with us? Anyway, on that note, thank you very much as always, and 再见.